Good morning. This is an art update. I'm going to tell you what I've been doing for the last week or so. Anyway, I'm spending the summer painting in some of my sketchbooks. There are three sketchbooks which I wanted to complete with painting. One of the sketchbooks I finished a few days ago, maybe Sunday or so, and right now I'm pressing that sketchbook underneath some heavy books to flatten it as much as possible. That particular sketchbook I will probably enter into the State Fair as an altered book. So I have two more sketchbooks to finish with painting. This one I'm almost halfway through. This is a very difficult sketchbook. This paper was really meant more for acrylic paints, so I'm doing a lot of mixing to get things right. And also I'm doing watercolor glazes on it. The paper is also very rough. It's almost a cotton rag paper. It wasn't really suited for what I ended up using it for, but that's all right. I like to learn something from every sketchbook. It will probably take me 2 weeks to finish painting this sketchbook, and then the third sketchbook will probably take about 2 weeks to finish painting. That's a teeny tiny one. And then after that, I will work on two full-size paintings to enter to the State Fair. Anyway, I'm going to finish showing you this book. This is the book which was issued by the United States Postal Service in 1995 for the 100th anniversary of the Yellow Kid, who is considered the first comic strip character. And stamps were released that year to commemorate these classic comics. Uh, Anyway, I have a couple of Flash Gordon books, so we can always look at Flash Gordon in detail later on. I think many of us are acquainted with Flash Gordon from the film with Brian Blessed and the music by Queen. The original serials by Buster Crabbe, which were just a few years after some of these strips, are also extremely enjoyable. And if you are a Star Wars fan, I would definitely watch them. Little Abner is a strip which I would love to discuss more in depth at another time. I only have about 3 Little Abner books, but I think it probably would be worth it to track down the entire run of Little Abner. I'm sure it's been published. I'll have to do some research on that. Little Abner was sort of the Mad Magazine and The Simpsons of the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. The strip continued till the early 70s, if I remember right, but its heyday, I think, was probably the 40s and 50s. Sadie Hawkins, the Sadie Hawkins marriage, I think, was 1952 or so. Um, anyway, it's a lush strip. It's goofy. It's whimsical in a way. It can also be very dark and satirical. There was a Broadway version of it at one time. I'm sure that could be tracked down. I have actually never read Terry and the Pirates as a comic strip, but one day I would like to. It certainly seems like the quintessential adventure comic strip, and I'm sure this had a big influence on the world of comic books. Prince Valiant, the artwork is just gorgeous. I mean, Hal Foster was just completely amazing. Let's see, yeah, there's one detail here. All right, Prince Valiant originals took a week to draw and were upwards to 40 inches tall. That is a painting. He was producing paintings every week. That's just absolutely amazing. Completely unprecedented. I don't even have words for it. I really don't know anything about Brenda Starr, and that she's considered, for this particular book, the last classic comic, and that's fine. This was a romance strip. Anyway, so I am working on painting. Let me show you something else. Even though I'm working with acrylics and watercolors and markers, I would also like to get into digital painting. I tried digital painting a couple of years ago and I couldn't get the hang of it. And I think it was because I was inexperienced with analog, traditional painting. and I just needed a little bit more experience. Anyway, let me show you this. This is a black and white page. I mean, this was drawn traditionally, just with a pen and ink, from last year. And so last week I was trying to figure out how to get into digital painting. So I took this, this was just intended to be black and white, and digitally I added just two colors. And my thinking was, in old comic books they only had 3 or 4 or 6 colors, and red and yellow are colors that I use a lot. So I was just experimenting with just adding 2 colors. This is probably something I'm going to do with one of my sketchbooks. I'm probably going to use a sketchbook and draw line art in black and then color it just with red and yellow, because those colors seem to work very well. I mean, the problem is I would draw something which was intended to be colored just with those colors. This was just intended to be black and white, so these 2 colors don't really work, but this was just an experiment. This is a black and white cartoon that I did around Christmas, and then last week I attempted to color it in digitally. I mean, this is very amateurish because it was my first time, but it is an experiment, and I will practice more digital painting at some time in the future. I may have to wait until I'm finished with those sketchbooks, because those sketchbooks are take a lot of work, as you can imagine. And then finally, I am looking into something else. This is a 4-panel format called Yonkoma from Japan, and it's actually very similar to 4-panel comics, such as Peanuts, which sorry about that. Schultz actually drew Peanuts in a very oversized. Never mind. Let's just hold like this. In a very oversized manner, and he actually folded it in half. And then the syndicate arranged the panels for him and had that sent to different places. This is a slightly different tradition because these are meant to be read top to bottom. I was trying to find a simple way to print out this format, and the reason is painting is kind of tiring in a way that pen and ink isn't, because I mean, even with pen and ink, you're drawing with your whole body. I mean, you're drawing with your wrists and your arm and your shoulder, but with painting, it's even more so, because mixing paint and I'm holding a palette, and it can be very tiring. So I was thinking of a way to take a break, but still be productive. So I was thinking, Yonkoma, I think that would be fun. I could just do that black and white, and maybe added some colors digitally. I don't know. The trouble is I'm having trouble having this printed in a size which I could actually use. There are actually professionally made templates. There's actually Yonkoma paper I could buy on Amazon, and I may do that one day. Anyway, this is just an experiment. So in the meanwhile, I will be working on painting this sketchbook. I still have many pages to go. And this is going to keep me occupied for a long time, but I will keep you in touch for painting and for any other comics that I read, and other experiments. All right, goodbye.